Hey there, my friends. This is Andy coming to you from Yorba, California for the Andy Falco Show. And yeah, I had to come on and just share with you it is the funniest. It's one of the funniest posts, but it's one of the funniest Carrie Buck posts that I that I have yet to see. And I will tell you why, but it just makes me laugh. This image actually says everything. This is about as close to a factual picture that you can get in relationship to how Carrie Buck affects the Placentia Yorba Unified School District is just burning hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, because she can and has the power. And the APLE and the CTA and the NEA all support Carrie Buck, and she obviously supports them because it's not about educating kids. It's about control of the systems where they can dictate the indoctrination of kids in many ways, but also use their power to destroy the educational system in California. And I know I get people all the time to say, do you really think that's what's going on? There is no other answer for the things that I'm about to tell you, is that it's not about education. I've been coming to these school board meetings for years. I've been investigating the CTA, the NEA, the APLE. I've been investigating each individual school board member, including the people that are on what I would consider my side, parents in the community. I want to make sure that I know who they are and what they believe, and can trust that they are going to be for education and not the indoctrination and the tearing down of families, of these children, so they don't necessarily learn how to read, write, and count, but believe in socialism and all the other isms that go along with it. Because they're two distinctly different things. Education is one thing, but the indoctrination and CRT and DEI and SEL and all the others is a whole nother thing. And they need to make sure that the kids do not get the education, because then if they are not educated, then they can get them to believe anything. They can get them to believe that tampons belong in the boys' bathroom in elementary schools, junior highs, and high schools. They can get you to believe that men can get pregnant. They can get you to believe that men should be allowed into girls' bathrooms and locker rooms. They'll get you to believe that men should compete against girls in girls' sports. But they can only do that if they do not educate the children in common sense on how to critically think. Once you're able to get them not to do that, then you can get them to walk out and believe that they're going to get drug out by ICE at any day, at any time, and get them to believe the stories that are made up in groups like Yorba Moms and PYL Buzz, that you can get people to believe these stories, not just the kids, but the family members that are in this community. So I'm going to do this really fast, just a few things, and this isn't all. I have some more things that I'm working on where you're going to be shocked, I think, based on what I'm learning about the inner workings of the district itself, how the superintendent, Dr. Kim, and the others that are in the superintendent position, Quintero and Anderson, along with Buck, you're going to be surprised by some of the facts and truth about what is happening and what their intentions are, and not, again, bringing education back to PYLUSD. I hesitated because I almost can't remember the last time that they discussed education. They are more than happy to put up on the screen about how the education is failing, how the kids aren't meeting the minimum standards. They do that themselves, which is odd. They talk about how they need to do more about education, but yet never do anything. And anytime we see an increase in education, very quickly they try to tear it down. So it's very odd. So getting back to the main gist of this particular thing is I want to show you first the post, and then why I thought it was one of the funniest posts I've ever seen. So here is the post, and it's Carrie Buck for PYLUSD. She's getting ready for the upcoming election. And the only truthful thing is the very first line that says, the future of PYLUSD is on the ballot. That is absolutely true, because it may not last another year as it stands now. PYLUSD may have to separate, where it just becomes PUSD, and then we have a separate ULSD, because it can't be sustained. Something's going to happen, and something's got to give. But back to the post that says, together, we've made meaningful progress in destruction, is what she means, the destruction of the district, through response. Okay, I was going to try to say that without laughing. Through responsible budgeting, transparent leadership, and a commitment to putting students first. Okay, I don't even need the rest of it. So just coming back to my camera, listen, this is what makes this so hysterical, because anybody that knows, anybody that's been paying attention, even if you are on the side of the lunatics like Anderson and Quintero and Buck and APLE and Kim Esparza, that's her name, and the person they brought on to help them bring back CRT and DEI and SEL into the education here at PYLUSD. Even if you're those people, you would laugh and say, no, it's not about responsible budgeting, because everything we do is against responsible budgeting. But it's funny that she puts it on there, and they probably get a big laugh at that too. And transparent leadership, not even happening. You have no idea the lack of transparency. There's no leadership. Kim Esparza is not a leader. She, every time they add one of their superintendents, not Chernus or Gates, of course, or maybe a couple of the others, but at least for sure not those two, I always think it's not going to get worse. They can't possibly find a worse superintendent than the last one. Mercerino was pretty bad too. But when you go back to El Sasser and Matthews, you just think each one of them gets just a little bit worse. And you're thinking, okay, that's it. That's the bottom of the barrel of incompetent superintendents. Dumbest non-leader person you can find. And then they bring in Kim Esparza. And wow. So there is no transparency, and there's no leadership and a commitment to putting students are not put first. That is put first in the sense that we think about them and how it is we can destroy them and their mental health, their understanding of real life. So I guess if you're putting them first in the sense that how is it that we can destroy their lives, then yes, they're putting them first, but not in regards to education. So I just have a few sides. I'm just scratching the surface, but let's just first look at the one big thing that makes me laugh about responsible budgeting. And that is Carrie Buck voted to borrow $48.5 million in a cab bond with a $439.2 million payback over 8 years. Okay, you tell me how you, as a living human being that has even just an ounce of intelligence, can then put on your post that I'm for responsible budgeting. I'm the same person who took out a $48.5 million cab bond knowing that there was going to be a $439.2 million payback over 8 years. It's not possible. Okay, that's fact. That's true. We are, as the taxpayers, are responsible for her incompetence and lack of responsibility. And now we have to, whether she stays in office or not, Carrie Buck just gets to eventually get voted out, hopefully, this election. And then she just goes away. She doesn't have to pay back this $439.2 million. She could move to Idaho, or no, she would never move to Idaho. She could move to Baltimore or Chicago or Northern California or Seattle, where she'd be happy with the other lunatics that are out there. But she doesn't have to pay back the $439.2 million. We do. We do as the community of this district. Okay, going back to my slides. The next thing is Carrie Buck, along with Anderson and Quintero, suspended and investigated illegally, I would say, superintendents, Chernus and Gates, principals, and others in the district at a cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm talking hundreds of thousands. It's quite possibly, I believe, I did some math on it. It is right around $1 million. So these individuals did nothing wrong. There was nothing to even suspend them for. There was nothing to suspend them for. Allegations that were made up. Allegations that were made up by, again, Yorba Linda Moms people, APLE people, CTA people. They made up stories. They made up scenarios saying that USI was created for Chernus's son, who wasn't even in the school district. That somehow that was created solely so that his son, who loves to wrestle, it was for him. That's the kind of, it's completely made up story. He does have a son who likes to wrestle, but he didn't create USI for his son. But that's just one of the many stories. But it's not true. But they use some of these things in order to justify this illegal suspension and investigation. Now, understand, when we're talking about the money that was spent on this, it was spent on their salaries. They were suspended with pay. So then they had to hire superintendents, horrible superintendents, by the way, to replace them. And I think they hired more than two to do the job that those two men were doing. So they needed to hire more people at the same salary that they would be paying Chernus and Gates. So now you're paying for two salaries for a position. You're paying the investigation, for the investigation, the investigative company to do the investigation. You're paying for attorneys to process the potential of either firing them or the legalities behind the suspensions, and then the potential lawsuits that are coming from everybody that was suspended. And this went on for months. Months and months and months. It wasn't until most recently the Gates finally decided, well, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to Beverly Hills High School. So when you add all the money up that went into the suspensions, the investigations, the attorneys, the additional hires that had to be done in order to replace these men so that they could do the work that needed to be done, we're talking at least $1 million. So again, Carrie Buck puts in responsible fiscal whatever it was. I forgot what she said. It's ludicrous that Carrie Buck could do anything in regard to fiscal responsibility. That is not fiscally responsible because you simply don't like somebody, that you cost the district up to $1 million, if not more than $1 million, just because you don't like somebody personally, or because they're Jewish, or because Gates was black. You don't spend this money just because you don't like somebody's black. But that's what Carrie Buck did, along with Anderson and Quintero. So let's go on to the next one. Carrie Buck, along with Anderson and Quintero again, want to spend anywhere between $3.4 million and $6.8 million to refurbish a kitchen at Placentia High School. So this number has changed back and forth. I know when I did my first request for information from the district was when it was at $6.8 million they were going to spend on this refurbish. Since then, they did a school board meeting where I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.4 million. But again, we have a lot of things that are going on in the school, and education is not one of them. But since education is not happening, they decide, you know what, we're not spending it on education. We're not spending it on programs that will increase education. We're not spending it on tutors for children that need help in areas of math or reading or counting, which is math also. But we're not needing the money for education. So why not go to Placentia High School to this kitchen and spend an enormous of unnecessary money on a refurbish? Again, they're not building a building. They're not buying land. They're not doing any of those things. They're simply taking something that exists and just sprucing it up. But a spruce up does not cost $3.4 million or $6.8 million. Somebody who's fiscally responsible is not going to do that. And yet Carrie Buck in her post said that she's going to be fiscally responsible. And we need to, she's right that needs to be brought to the school, but she's not the person who's demonstrated the ability to do that. She has been in the school district for years. And at no time has she shown a desire to be responsible for the money that's spent in the school district. All right, let's go to the next one. So Carrie Buck single-handedly destroyed OCSCS and USI, wasting millions of dollars in funds and increased unenrollment, that should say. Sorry, I should correct that. It should say unenrollment or a decrease in enrollment, not an increase in enrollment. I guess that's right. Wasting millions of dollars of funds and increase enrollment. So let me come back and correct myself for a third time on this one slide. So OCSCS and USI was created by Dr. Chernus It was at a very low cost. It didn't cost $6.8 million, which they're willing to spend on a refurbishing of a kitchen. It may have cost $1.6 million of money that was meant to be used for such a thing, of creating something that was for education. So that money was spent responsibly because it had to be spent for something that would be brought to the district that was new. Not like fixing air conditioning, not like putting up walls at a school that didn't have walls between 5 schools like they had to. It was to create something new. There's these funds that a district is allotted, say, okay, here's some money, make something new that's innovative, that's going to bring education, it's going to be good for the kids. Use this money for that. It could only be used for that. And Dr. Chernis says, great, I have a great idea. And he created OCSCS and USI, and that's what that money was used for. In doing so, along with other programs and just the fact that Dr. Chernis and Dr. Gates were focused on education, we saw an increase in enrollment. So we had money coming in from increased enrollment. We had programs that were flourishing, and all they needed was time to continue to work out some of the bugs and to innovate some of the programs. And then there's time that needs to be taken, that you implement one stage of the program, and then you have a second stage, third stage. So there needed to be time for those things to happen. But even in the first stage, we saw an increase in enrollment. We saw an increase in achievement in as far as grades are concerned, and the ability to educate kids. All that was happening. And so what Carrie Buck and Anderson and Quintero decided to do, but Carrie Buck was the ringleader or the puppeteer that used her puppets to destroy OCSCS and USI, which then wasted the $1 million that was being made through the increased enrollment. There we go. That makes the slide adequate and correct. And the money that was spent on creating the programs themselves, and the potential for further increased enrollment that we would see when we showed proof of concept with these things working. But Carrie Buck could not have that. She was given orders by the teachers' unions, the APLE and the CTA, and said, you cannot have this program succeed. You cannot have children getting educated. You can't have the increase in education, as we can see through testing. You could actually see the impact on OCSCS, on tutoring, on all the other innovative programs that were brought to the district-wide. And like I said in a recent video, even Carrie Buck mistakenly said in a roundtable special board meeting, she was given what was going on at OCSCS and shown, the impact on the education, that it was actually increasing the knowledge of the children and the standards that were being reached. And she mistakenly said, wow, we should do that at all the schools. And again, you never heard her say that again, and it just kind of left her lips and her memory hole, because none of those things were implemented. They were so busy destroying OCSCS and everybody that was involved in it, and harassed them, that it just went away and never happened again. And so that slide now is correct. All right, the last one. Carrie Buck responsible for continuous negative enrollment to this day, which leads to a loss of hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. Because remember, Carrie Buck has been on the school board for years. Prior to the parents having control for a short period of time, where Dr. Chernis and Dr. Gates were brought in. So prior to that, there was this constant decline. Now, everybody wants to blame COVID, and that's all nonsense. Just ignore them. The loss of enrollment was happening before that, and it occurred during it and after it. And then shortly thereafter, Chernis comes in and Gates come in, and we see it stop and a increase. We begin to see an increase in enrollment during that period of time. And then Carrie Buck comes back in with control with Quintero and Anderson, and then back to a loss of enrollment from then on. Currently, we have a loss of enrollment in the hundreds of students since they've taken over. And so Carrie Buck is the only common denominator. When she is in control and her minions are in control, there is a loss of enrollment. The time that she was not involved, because she was in the minority, we saw an increase in enrollment. Carrie Buck and her minions come back in charge, and we see a unenrollment and a loss of students in our school district, and it all points to Carrie Buck. So let me just go back to, so I can get the wording correctly, is that together we've made meaningful progress through a responsible budgeting, transparent leadership, and a commitment to putting students first. Again, that's got to be the funniest post I've ever seen from anyone, but especially from Carrie Buck. That is not what's happening. That is the last thing that is happening in the school district, and you need to know that. All right, my friends, that's it for this particular episode. Make sure and share this out to your friends so they can see truly that Carrie Buck is irresponsible with anything. She couldn't run a lemonade stand. All right, my friends, that's it. Talk to you later. Take care. Bye.